The conference room fell silent the moment Vincent Shaw interrupted me. I was mid-sentence, explaining our quarterly analytics when his voice sliced through the air like a blade. Are we really wasting everyone's time with this? He laughed, loud and deliberate. The sound echoed off the glass walls. My hands froze on the laptop. 20 faces turned toward me, some smirking, others looking away in embarrassment. Vincent leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, enjoying every second. Honestly, this is why I question who we're hiring these days. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. The VP of Operations had just publicly destroyed me in front of the entire leadership team. Then I noticed him. Mr. Coleman, the CEO, standing in the corner. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were locked on Vincent. I barely made it to the bathroom before my legs gave out. I locked myself in the far stall and pressed my back against the cold metal door. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't hold my phone steady. Vincent's laughter replayed in my mind on a cruel loop. The humiliation burned hotter than anger. I heard footsteps enter, then pause. That was brutal, someone muttered. Another voice responded, he's done this before. Maya from finance quit because of him. The door swung shut, leaving me alone again. I wiped my face and stared at the ceiling. I had worked here for 3 years. 3 years of early mornings and late nights. And it took Vincent Shaw 30 seconds to erase it all. My phone buzzed. An email notification. Subject line, meeting with HR urgent. The HR office smelled like vanilla air freshener and anxiety. Mrs. Patterson sat across from me, her fingers drumming nervously on a manila folder. She wasn't looking at me directly. I want you to know, she began carefully, that what happened today was inappropriate. I nodded, waiting for the but. However, I can't officially take sides in workplace conflicts. There it was. She glanced at the door, then lowered her voice. Off the record, Vincent Shaw is under performance scrutiny. Upper management has been watching him closely. My pulse quickened. What does that mean? She hesitated, then reached for a document on her desk. As she slid it toward me, her hand slipped. Papers scattered. One landed face up in front of me. Confidential employee complaints. Vincent Shaw's name was at the top. I shouldn't have looked. But the document was right there, staring at me. Multiple complaints. Bullying. Manipulation. Falsified reports. My eyes scanned the bullet points, each one more damning than the last. 3 formal complaints filed in the past year. All swept under the rug. My hands trembled as I read the final note at the bottom, pending investigation, leadership unaware. But underneath that, a signature. Coleman. The CEO had signed it. He knew. He knew everything, and yet Vincent Shaw still roamed the halls like he owned the place. Mrs. Patterson snatched the paper back, her face flushed. You didn't see that, she said quickly. Please. I stood up slowly, my mind racing. If the CEO knew, why was Vincent still here? And why was I the one sitting in HR? I started asking questions. Quietly. Carefully. In the break room, by the water cooler, in hushed conversations after meetings. Everyone had a story. Marcus from IT told me Vincent had taken credit for his automation project. Delia from marketing described how he'd screamed at her in front of clients. Trevor from finance said Vincent had sabotaged his performance review to protect his own numbers. The pattern was undeniable. Vincent Shaw wasn't just a bad manager. He was a bully with a system. And somehow, he'd gotten away with it for years. On Thursday, I was leaving the parking garage when someone grabbed my arm. It was Delia. Her eyes were wide with fear. He knows, she whispered. Vincent knows people are talking. And he's furious. The retaliation started immediately. Friday morning, I arrived to find my projects reassigned. No explanation. No email. Just gone. By noon, my access to shared files was revoked. I couldn't open budget reports or client presentations. When I asked Vincent's assistant about the team meeting scheduled for 2 o'clock, she looked confused. What meeting? She asked. Vincent had excluded me. Erased me. By evening, the office felt like a minefield. Every glance from a coworker carried weight. Every closed door felt like a conspiracy. I stayed late, alone at my desk, staring at my empty calendar. That's when I noticed the printer across the hall. It was still running, spitting out pages into the tray. I walked over. The header on the first page made my heart stop. Internal communication, Vincent Shaw. Confidential. I should have walked away. But my hands were already reaching for the papers. Email threads. Dozens of them. Vincent coordinating with department heads to manipulate quarterly numbers. Inflating performance metrics. Hiding budget overruns. Falsifying data to make his department look profitable when it was bleeding money. My breath caught. This wasn't just workplace politics. This was fraud. I pulled out my phone and started photographing every page. My hands were shaking so badly the first few pictures came out blurry. I steadied myself and tried again. Behind me, the door opened. Vincent Shaw stood in the doorway, staring directly at me. His smile was cold and sharp. Find something interesting? The room felt smaller suddenly. Vincent closed the door behind him and leaned against it, arms folded. His eyes never left mine. You think anyone will believe you? He asked, his voice soft and venomous. I didn't answer. My phone was still in my hand, hidden against my leg. He stepped closer. Let me explain how this works. I've been here 12 years. I have relationships with the board. I have leverage. You? He laughed quietly. You're a mid-level analyst who just got caught snooping through confidential files. He leaned in until I could smell his cologne. I can make one call and end your career. Do you understand me? My thumb found the record button. I understand, I said. He smiled. Good. Now put those papers back and forget you ever saw them. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, replaying the recording over and over. Vincent's threat was clear. His arrogance was suffocating. But now I had proof. The problem was what to do with it. Going to HR felt pointless. They'd already warned me to stay quiet. Going public could backfire. Vincent had power and connections. I had a recording and a stack of evidence that technically I shouldn't have. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for someone to save me. I was going to document everything. Every email Vincent sent. Every meeting he excluded me from. Every witness who'd seen his behavior. I started building a case, piece by piece. Then my phone rang. HR again. Mrs. Patterson's voice was tight. We need to see you immediately. Vincent Shaw has filed a formal complaint against you. The meeting room felt like a courtroom. Mrs. Patterson sat with another HR representative, a man I didn't recognize. Vincent's complaint was printed and stapled, sitting between them like evidence at trial. He's accused you of unprofessional behavior and insubordination, Mrs. Patterson said, reading from the document. He claims you've been spreading false rumors and accessing confidential files without authorization. My stomach twisted. Vincent was flipping the script. Making me the villain. I reached into my bag slowly and pulled out a folder. I have evidence, I said. Mrs. Patterson frowned. Evidence of what? I slid the folder across the table. Everything. I opened my phone, found the recording, and pressed play. Vincent's voice filled the room. I can make one call and end your career. The HR representatives exchanged a look. Mrs. Patterson's face went pale. They told me to go home. Not suspended. Not fired. Just go home and wait. We need to handle this internally, the male HR rep said. His tone was careful, almost apologetic. Stay calm. Don't speak to anyone about this. Let us investigate. I nodded, but inside I was screaming. Hours passed. Then days. The office felt like it was holding its breath. Coworkers avoided eye contact. Vincent's assistant looked pale and jittery. Something was happening behind the scenes, but no one was talking. On Wednesday, I got a calendar invitation. Subject, special meeting. Location, executive floor. Attendee, Mr. Coleman. The CEO wanted to see me. My hands went cold. This was either the end of my career or the beginning of something else entirely. Mr. Coleman's office was nothing like I'd imagined. No power desk. No intimidating leather chairs. Just a simple workspace with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He gestured to a seat across from him. Tell me everything, he said. No preamble. No small talk. So I did. I told him about the meeting. The humiliation. The retaliation. The emails I'd found. The recording. He listened without interrupting, his face carved from stone. When I finished, he leaned back. Do you still have the emails? He asked. I nodded. Send them to me. Tonight. Don't tell anyone. He picked up his phone, pressed a button, and said calmly, initiate the audit. Then he looked at me. Go home. Stay quiet. This ends soon. The audit hit the company like a bomb. By Thursday morning, an external accounting firm had set up camp in the conference rooms. Executives walked past with tight faces and closed mouths. Vincent Shaw started unraveling. I heard him shouting in his office, his voice muffled but furious. By afternoon, he was cornering department heads, demanding to know who'd talked. His arrogance had curdled into desperation. I kept my head down, but I felt his eyes on me constantly. On Friday evening, I was walking to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Vincent appeared beside me, his face pale and slick with sweat. You think you've won? He hissed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. This isn't over. He walked away before I could respond. But his hands had been shaking. Monday morning, someone knocked on my cubicle wall. It was Maya, the woman from finance. The one who'd quit because of Vincent. Except she hadn't quit. She'd been forced out. I heard what you did, she said quietly. She glanced around, then leaned closer. I have evidence too. From 2 years ago. Emails. Witness statements. I've been holding on to them, waiting for the right moment. My heart raced. Why didn't you come forward before? She smiled sadly. Because I was alone. But you're not. We spent the next hour comparing notes. Her evidence lined up perfectly with mine. Together, we had an airtight case. Before she left, she said something that made my blood run cold. You're not going to believe who's been helping us this whole time. Her name was Beatrice Yates. Vincent Shaw's former executive assistant. She'd worked for him for 4 years before transferring to the CEO's office. Now she was Mr. Coleman's chief of staff. And she had been gathering evidence against Vincent for years. We met in a coffee shop across town. Beatrice was calm, methodical, almost clinical. He thought I was loyal, she said, stirring her tea. But I saw everything. Every lie. Every manipulation. Every person he destroyed. She slid a USB drive across the table. This is 5 years of documentation. I've been waiting for the right moment. For someone brave enough to stand up. She looked at me. That's you. I picked up the drive. What happens now? She smiled. Tomorrow, everything changes. The leadership meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Officially, it was to discuss audit findings. Unofficially, it was an execution. Vincent walked in confident, his suit pressed, his smile easy. He didn't know. The room filled with executives, board members, department heads. I sat in the back, my heart hammering. Mr. Coleman entered last. He took his seat at the head of the table and looked around the room slowly. Then his eyes landed on Vincent. "Before we begin," Mr. Coleman said quietly, "I want to address something." He nodded to Beatrice. She pressed a button on the laptop. The recording played. Vincent's voice filled the room. "I can make one call and end your career." The room went silent. Vincent's face drained of color. Mr. Coleman's expression didn't change. "Is that how you lead in this company?" No one moved. No one spoke. The recording ended, leaving only silence. Vincent opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Mr. Coleman stood. "This meeting is over," he said simply. Then he walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The room erupted in whispers. Vincent sat frozen, his hands gripping the table. I watched as realization spread across his face like a stain. He'd lost. Everyone knew it. An hour later, I saw security enter his office. They stood by the door while he packed his things into a cardboard box. No one helped him. No one said goodbye. He left through the side exit, his head down, his shoulders slumped. The VP who'd terrorized the office for years was gone in under 60 minutes. By noon, his name had been scrubbed from the internal directory. His email bounced back. His office door was locked, empty. The building felt lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. People spoke in normal tones again. Someone even laughed in the break room. At 2 o'clock, a courier arrived. I watched from my desk as he entered Vincent's old office and placed an envelope on the desk. The header was visible from across the hall. Termination notice. It was official. Vincent Shaw was done. My phone buzzed. Another meeting request. Same location. Executive floor. Mr. Coleman wanted to see me again. My stomach twisted. I didn't know if I was about to be thanked or fired. I grabbed my jacket and headed upstairs. Mr. Coleman was standing by the window when I entered. He turned and gestured for me to sit. "You handled yourself with dignity," he said. "In a situation where most people would have quit or retaliated, you documented. You stayed calm. You followed process." He paused. "I respect that." I didn't know what to say. "I also know this wasn't easy. You risked your career. Your reputation. And you did it because it was right." He sat down across from me. "I want to offer you something." My heart raced. "Vincent's position is open. I'm restructuring the department. I want you to lead it." I stared at him. "Me?" He nodded. "But before you decide, there's something else you should know." Mr. Coleman leaned back, his hands folded. The audit didn't just uncover Vincent's misconduct. It triggered a larger investigation. Fraud. Embezzlement. Falsified reports that affected investor disclosures. My eyes widened. "How much?" "Millions," he said quietly. "Spread across 3 years." Vincent wasn't just a bully. He was running a scheme. And your evidence was the thread that unraveled it. I felt dizzy. "You didn't just save your job," Mr. Coleman continued. "You saved this company. The board is grateful. I'm grateful." He stood and extended his hand. "So what do you say?" I shook his hand, my voice steady. "I accept." He smiled. "Good. Because we have a lot of work to do." My first week in the new role was chaos. I inherited a demoralized team, broken processes, and a mountain of cleanup work. But I also inherited something else. Trust. People started coming forward. Sharing ideas. Asking questions. The fear that had hung over the department like fog began to lift. I implemented new policies. Open-door communication. Anonymous reporting channels. Regular check-ins. Small changes, but they mattered. Then, on Friday, Mrs. Patterson pulled me aside. "Vincent's trying to appeal his termination," she said quietly. "He's claiming wrongful dismissal. Says the evidence was obtained illegally." My stomach dropped. "Can he win?" She shook her head. "Not a chance. But he's trying." Vincent's appeal was pathetic. A 10-page document full of excuses and accusations. He blamed office politics. Claimed he was framed. Accused me of jealousy and insubordination. The board reviewed it in under an hour. Their response was 3 sentences long. "Your termination stands. The evidence is conclusive. We wish you the best in your future endeavors." I read the email twice, just to be sure. It was over. Really over. Vincent Shaw was gone, and he wasn't coming back. That night, I sat in my apartment and let myself feel it. Relief. Exhaustion. Something close to pride. I hadn't just survived. I'd fought back. And I'd won. Months passed. The department stabilized. Morale improved. We hit our quarterly targets for the first time in 2 years. People smiled in meetings. Collaboration replaced suspicion. I was preparing for my first all-hands meeting when Beatrice stopped by my office. "Nervous?" she asked. I nodded. Terrified. She smiled. "You'll be great. And for what it's worth, you did something most people never do. You stood up." I thought about that as I walked to the conference room. The same room where Vincent had humiliated me. The same glass walls. The same long table. But everything felt different now. I stood at the front and looked at the faces watching me. Then I began. The presentation went well. People asked questions. Offered suggestions. Applauded at the end. As I gathered my notes, I felt my phone buzz. An email from an unknown sender. No subject line. I opened it. "Thank you for standing up. You gave us all courage. You showed us that silence isn't strength. And that the truth always wins. We're watching. We're learning. And we're grateful." I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and walked out of that conference room with my head high. I didn't just survive Vincent Shaw. I dismantled the system that protected him. And in doing so, I became the leader I'd always wanted to work for. People ask me sometimes if it was worth it. The fear. The risk. The sleepless nights. And I tell them the truth. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was also the most important. Because silence protects bullies. Documentation protects people. And courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. Vincent Shaw humiliated me in front of everyone. Hours later, his termination letter hit his desk. But what really ended him wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was the truth. And the truth, I learned, is the most powerful weapon we have. I still work at that company. I still walk those halls. But now, when I pass that conference room, I don't see the place where I was humiliated. I see the place where I found my voice.